All right, now we're moving to new business, overnight student trip. And Patty, I know you're up here. Why don't you stay up here? And then Kevin, you can do the introduction, or Pam.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, you know what, Pam, why don't you introduce Patty?
Hi, this
We don't bite, so.
This is Patty Farley. She is from our Applied Arts Department and our culinary expert, and she works with our Family Career Community Leaders of America group. She's one of our sponsors, our lead sponsor on that, and she's going to talk to you about how we have to prepare for the state conference trip that our students every year seem to qualify for because of how well they do in that department. So we'll let Patty explain to you a little bit about that trip and what it entails.
Thank you. Hello. It's nice to meet you. Welcome. We never know how many students are going to go to the state, and I realize that I have to ask for you to approve this without knowing the number of students. It is a rebuilding year. We lost several of our students last year, graduated and are at several great universities around the country. So right now, currently, we have district competitions coming up in February. From February, they have to achieve certain scores to be welcome to compete at the state. Although competition is a key component of this stretch of the FCCLA group, it is not the only component. This is a co-curricular organization, so students are taking the knowledge that they've gained in other courses as well as in the applied arts courses, and they're finding a platform with which they would like to present and educate the community on what they think is an important area. Historically, we've had some environmental students that have gone nationally to competition all about your water bottles. We've had students that have talked about why women need to understand how the cars work, and that we shouldn't just be driving them, that we should be taking an auto mechanics class. We've had all different subject areas that fall under family, career, community leaders, and so it is an infusion of their curriculum, whether they're working with their English teacher in the speech classes, or their science teacher, or their auto mechanics teacher, or in culinary, storytelling and child development, and then this is their area to see how well they do and meet people from the industry, and it begins a networking. And it does fall under the Character Counts initiative. It has been embedded within the FCCLA program for many years. So for those of you that are not familiar with this, that's just a little background on the club.
Patty, we had a couple general questions from the
Okay.
board that they sent previously. Tim, do we know roughly approximately how much was spent last year?
Last year in the spring, we spent about $1,300 on registration and hotel. In October of last year, we paid $300.
Well, we have several different leadership conferences. So there is a leadership conference this year. It was actually in Arlington Heights. And we had professionals from culinary there. And it's very much like a professional workshop you or I would attend, where the students sign up for different workshops that they listen to and interface with professionals from the industry. So that is where that money would have gone. It's a nationally recognized organization, so we have fees and dues that are required from national level as well as the state level. We here at RB really don't have any fees for the club because the students have to pay for these different meetings as we go along. And then if they choose to compete, for instance, in culinary, they go and buy all of their food that they have to practice with, and then, for instance, cake decorating is a very popular one, and they have to purchase all of those supplies. So it's the registration fees and the workshop costs that we've paid for in October.
So the district would
Okay,
have
so
to
the-
cover the cost of transportation and lodging and any fees and per diem money for meals?
Correct, just like if the debate team went to state or the track team went to state, it's my understanding that there is a district fund for students that attend state functions. But the students end up still contributing. We asked, last year we only stayed one night, so we asked them to pay $50 per person. And once again, that paid for the FCCLA registration fees. And then we just asked the district to step in for the other costs.
And I think we can look at some of our activity money also. So the actual expenditure that we bring to the board, we can try to minimize that out of district fund balance accounts. Once we look at some of our activity dollars and some of those accounts, and I will work on that with Pam and Tim once we know a dollar amount. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you told me this yesterday, we have 3 students that are kind of like in the regional competition.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, out of those 3, we'll see how many qualify for state. So we're talking no more than 3 plus a chaperone.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's our rebuilding year. It's the smallest group that we've had. We still have other students in the club. They just chose not to compete. So please don't think that, as I said, that's not the only component of the club.
Any questions for Patty?
I got a quick question.
Okay.
Is the gender proportion pretty much consistent with other courses of study in our school? Or is it skewed toward females?
Oh, no, not females at all. Actually,
So,
we've had
guy
several. Yeah,
participation?
it's definitely, this year it does happen to be females. And that's kind of a fluke. We've had males and females all along. As far as curriculum, because it does fall under the Family and Consumer Science umbrella, traditionally people think that there's more female in those programs, but that's not the case at all.
Good, thanks.
Mhm.
Any other question for Patty?
No, just a comment. Ms. Farley, I believe it was Hannah who did the.
It
auto-
was.
And in 3 trimesters, she will graduate as a mechanical engineer from Milwaukee School of Engineering, and she is president of the Mechanical Engineer Association.
That's
Thank you
terrific.
for sharing that.
Talk about
Yeah.
company.
All right.
As far as the board, maybe we can put it on our curriculum meeting when we meet. The FCCLA and the consumer education classes always seem to me to be an orphan. They do compete, and they go to state, and I believe the courses even get Triton College credit. Pamela had 2 Triton College credits, like dual credit from the course. But, so how we budget for it, where we put it, I think it's something that we should talk about, so it's just not like this odd,
Orphan.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Do I have a motion for this?
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the overnight trip of the FCCLA Family Career Community Leaders of America State Conference on April 20 through 21st, 2012 in Springfield as presented in the December 13, 2011 Board Agenda Packet.
Second by Mike Welch. Any other discussion? Mary Ann?
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Goodson?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. Thank you very much. Hope you make it to your game.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next item of new business is the 2012-2013 school calendar.
Just for a point of clarification, Laura, you said you wanted the curriculum council to look at
When we meet, I'm not saying that we have a meeting, but when we meet, it always seems like the consumer family, of course, they're like an orphan, kind of. But they offer dual credit, they go to state, it's one of our recognitions. Many of the students in the past have received $20,000 scholarships to Kendall. So it's a significant program at our school, and it just seems like every year we
Is your
wonder where
daughter
those
in
funds go. Pamela received $20,000, I know the Giannitti girls received scholarship money going through the program. Pamela received Triton credit and RB credit, so.
One of the things that I know impacts those staffings is the course enrollments.
Right.
Students signing up for those courses, so we just got to make sure we push that as well so that they meet the 20% minimum. Or 20, not, that's, I'm thinking of the fund balance.
Right.
They meet the minimum
Percentage out of that
enrollment
stuff.
policy.
Right, if they don't meet that, then they don't go on, but if they do meet it,
Right,
we need to.
how we fund it.
How we fund, right, we need to be able to fund it if they meet their criteria.
Okay.
All right, school calendar.
This is just a first reading, something for the board to look at. I already met with the feeder school superintendents. So our spring breaks will align with all of our feeder schools. Our Christmas break, or our holiday winter break aligns with 3 out of the 4, or 2 out of the 3 feeder schools. I think 96 is going to have a little bit of a slightly different calendar next winter because they're starting later due to their construction over the summer. But all of us aligned so that our spring breaks were all the same. So what the Leadership Council is looking at, this, as well as the RBEA, all the feeder superintendents have seen it. We've talked and met and kind of aligned these a little bit. So I'll bring this again to the board in January, and we might be able to take action in January at the latest, the board meeting in February.
The last couple of years, in parallel with the school calendar, we also approved the holiday schedule. So you might want to look back on the website as to about a year ago and see.
Right. Mary Ann and I are drafting that. We figured we'd get that in your hands once we get to the second and or kind of like the final draft of this, so we're not changing 2 documents at the same time.
Okay, great.
So you'll get a reading of that as well.
Hey, Kevin, I'm sorry, go on, John, excuse me.
Kevin, I'm wondering, looking at this calendar again, and this goes back to last year, I had some issues on this calendar about conflicts with state series. This goes beyond that. This goes to the fact we've basically changed something in a massive way here, starting school basically, a week early, and I understand there were rationales behind that. I'm not sure those were totally discussed. I think, I'd like to know now what you think. How does this starting date and the end dates compare to our feeder schools? Is it off a week? Or?
Our starting date is identical to what we did this year, so that's where a lot of that discussion and meeting with the PTOs and the booster clubs and different parent meetings occurred last year. So this is a similar calendar of what we're already following this year.
Right.
As regards to starting, we are about a week ahead of time.
Right, so my point is, I think I'd like us to revisit this, the whole rationale of starting early, and I think actually should be brought up to the community for their involvement. The reason I say that is, it is a big deal as a parent when you've got kids in grade school and high school, when you're losing a whole week of summer vacation.
I think that would be somewhat going backwards of what the administration and the board worked on, trying to get this adopted for this year.
Well, I realize that, but I really think that for due diligence, we need to investigate this, even if it's just at our
Well, my biggest concern with that, and just so the board is aware why we do this, is we're trying to align the high schools more to what kids are going to face when they leave high school and go to college, and that's getting your final exams done before your winter break. So by starting a week later, then those kids will have 2 weeks off, and then they come back and they take their winter exams with a 2-week hiatus, a 2-week break. That's not good practice. And
the other thing we did too, when we were talking about this before, like not this year, but the years prior, the balancing, so like first semester had so many dates, but second semester had more dates. And what they were doing with bringing the week earlier was to balance it to have equal number of days.
Okay, I don't see what the rationale is for that. If we have a year-long course schedule, it doesn't matter. I understand what Kevin's points with the semester exams. No disrespect to the prior board, but I really don't think this was analyzed adequately, and I just wanted to get revisited.
The other thing is,
Can I address that?
I don't know if that's appropriate.
As a
Mr.
teacher,
Sidney.
Okay.
The rationale behind it was that not every course is a year course. I teach all year courses, so for me, it was not a difference. I just adjusted my semester exam depending on what units I covered. But many courses are semester courses. So if you have a first semester course, that course was about 10 days shorter in terms of the length if we kept finals before Christmas break, which again, educationally is the best practice to do. So by moving a week earlier, now the 2 semesters were almost exactly the same length. So if you're teaching a semester course, now each semester is equal and one group isn't getting shortened by 10 days and the other group isn't getting a whole extra unit and getting ahead. So that was something when we switched to this calendar 7 years ago, I think it was, we never equaled it out. And the semester course teachers complain pretty regularly that the fall semester, you're getting 10 less days of instruction, and so those kids miss out. So that was the main rationale for finally getting to
If you want to have,
semesters are equal.
if you want to have finals before Christmas, if you look right now, we have 90 days in the second semester, and we have 85 days in the first semester. So if you think it's important to have the finals before Christmas, and you cut off 5 calendar days, you would have 80 days in the first semester and 95 days in the second semester, a difference of 15 school days.
Right, but that was done for how many, 30 years, 50 years?
No,
We used to have the finals after Christmas.
yeah, it was about 7 years ago. It was 2 boards, when I was on the board, the first time where the finals were done before Christmas. The students really liked that because they felt that they lost momentum taking the 2 weeks off during break. And then they had to come back and they had to hurry up, kind of catch up, do some reviews, and then take that course. When we had the construction project, couldn't do that. We had to go back to the old schedule. And we realized just how valuable it was to have those finals before you left for 2 weeks and then try to get back to that schedule.
And Dr. King, I brought this up when I came here because I was, this happened at my daughter's district when she was in high school. They switched to having the exams before the winter break so that students, you know, it was a better assessment of their skills. And then you had a real vacation that families appreciated because kids weren't worrying about finishing up their work over the vacation time. But I noticed that here, they never balanced the semesters. They did the one thing without the other. Most schools do the same thing at the same time. They do both things at the same time, I should say. When you move your exams to before the break, they also move the start earlier to balance the 2 semesters. And so I brought the situation up and started talking about it at Leadership Council, and it was a cause for concern because it was actually, I think it was 11 days we were different last year. And you know, that's a significant amount of learning that one semester, first semester course that the students aren't getting as much knowledge.
Like I said, I want this brought up at the curriculum meeting. I don't think it was thoroughly evaluated. I understand the arguments. I mean, how many semester courses do we have here? I don't know. I just want the numbers. I'd like to know what other schools are starting this way. All due respect to Hinsdale.
No, this was at Lamont High School.
Lamont, okay. Well, I mean,
Well, there are counter
there
arguments.
are counter arguments. Like I said, we're not aligned with the grade schools, and we're basically wiping out a week of vacation. I'm talking about parents. So maybe parents don't care, but I think just for transparency, we have to explain this more because I don't fully appreciate it.
And
If I
some
don't,
kids
a lot of
work
people
during the
don't.
summer too.
Yeah.
Well, another thing this calendar brought parity, if you had students in the fall sports, the swimmers and all the fall sports, they were starting at this week. They were already in the pool, 2 practices, that was IHI start time. So for them, start classes was moved.
I'm not saying it's not a bad idea. I just don't think it was thoroughly vetted and presented. That's all.
I'll
Okay.
just say that there's parents on both sides of
Discuss it
that.
That's
when
right.
the
I
benefits.
heard one story in the right ear and a different story in the left ear.
How do we
last
address
year.
this one issue, though? How do we assure that, besides what we did, that the community and parents and the students can, if they have something to say about it,
I
say
look
it?
back last year, putting in this year's calendar was the first year of starting so early.
Right.
Yeah.
There were meetings with the with the patrons, there were meetings with the booster club, there were meetings
Okay.
with the feeder school superintendents. So there were several groups that were involved in that. Because I asked Mary Ann, do I have to meet with
That's
all these
fine.
groups?
Let's
And-
put it on the website too and put an announcement out there, look at, for, you know what I mean, so.
That's
All
fine.
right, so this is, we're gonna talk about it some more,
Fair enough.
Vincent.
I need to clarify, is this something that the entire board wants me to look into? Because we have to start prioritizing what you want me working on as we move forward, because if we continue to identify things at these meetings, something's gonna have to be put to tier 2.
Well, could somebody help John, what you're saying? His point was, it doesn't appear to, he didn't feel like it was vetted out last year. What you're saying is it was pretty thoroughly vetted out last year.
It was.
There was
So if
public
somebody can
comment.
educate that on it, maybe he's not gonna be as strong in his position about re-vetting it out this year.
I would have to leave.
It was vetted out, there was discussions on it, we brought up concerns at first why it was done, why we moved it up 1 week, and the explanation was given on the semester classes for fall, the balancing of it, to have finals before Christmas, to stop this lag in there, and it all made sense to us when we were looking at it, so you may think it wasn't vetted out, it was vetted out, and there was big discussions on it, so, all right?
Yeah, do you want to?
Well, has there been an idea of like
I'm gonna put it out there
why
again.
the grade schools don't adopt the same calendar so everyone's synchronized?
I think that a grade school is different than a high school because
They don't get
They don't
finals.
they don't get
Semesters
finals,
at
you know what I
home.
mean, so it's a totally different animal, so.
So this year will be even a little more distorted because 96 is going to be
Right.
starting after Labor Day because of
Yeah.
construction.
Just like we did.
And they're not going to take some holidays either.
We're not gonna do any more.
And they're just one of the feeders. Would you feel more comfortable if Kevin directed his staff to find out what a couple of the high schools near us are doing? Because I think some of them are actually doing this type
Yeah.
of, this before. Would that
Right.
be something you'd want?
No, I think that's reasonable.
Because
It's
I
a good
agree
way
with
to-
Kevin, you know, we got a lot of stuff coming up that we're gonna have to take care of, and
Let's,
if we're gonna send them off to do something,
I think there should be something on our website that says calendar, and then here's the history of why we changed it, why we're doing it,
Yeah.
and
I could do
how
that.
many schools are doing this, this is the rationale.
or an email blast to the
a good
parents through
start.
whatever
Yeah, this
system we
is what it
have.
is, this is what our
Right.
proposed calendar, and this is what it
I
is.
think most people
We can do that
critical of
through
it don't
Skype.
know the semester balancing, you know.
Okay, anything else?
We got to be
I just-
careful when I send this, just in case there's any more changes in it. So,
It's just a proposal right
so
now.
parents don't say, well, oh, I could plan our spring break on this date, and then all of a sudden we find out, wait, we need to move
I think the
this.
key thing, you gotta bold it, it's not finalized, it's proposed.
Well, you have it in the press packet, and you have the word draft on it.
Right.
I mean, it can't be more visible than that.
Proposed
biggest word
calendar,
on the
rationale,
Draft calendar.
draft calendar.
Proposed /
Draft,
draft
yeah.
calendar. Any
Not
other words
final.
that would fit in there, just put another slash.
Not
another
final,
word.
do not book your vacation.
Well, and I think it speaks to, and I don't have an answer, there isn't an answer, the process is going forward so that we don't get a vocal minority or 3 people come in. What would be that process? You're thinking of a calendar. What would vetting look like? You know, posting it on the website or sending it through Skyward and say, this is going to be discussed at the board meeting, or send comments here in a timely fashion, not maybe one meeting ahead, but as we move forward, to be thinking about how do we get information into the hands of people that will be using it in a timely fashion so that there isn't doubt that it wasn't vetted.
And you're gonna bring it up to boosters, right? I mean, to patrons, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's what
Okay.
Kevin was talking about, is that we had gone through that whole process last year, and
Okay.
we didn't
But you're gonna do
think
the
we
same
were
thing
gonna
this
do
year,
the same
right?
thing. Absolutely can when I meet
Okay.
with them.
One of the arguments I heard last year, John, was not from the grade school perspective, but taking a student to college perspective, that's typically the week that you gotta get the college kids on campus, and if the parenting situation is such, you can't leave the high school kid at home unsupervised, and also travel to the college campus for the student going to college, and that dilemma occurs on the other side of the.
The age, yeah, exactly.
So.
No, it's a good point, but let's reinforce what Laura just said. Because going forward in the future, we need to have some way to survey our parents on this kind of thing. And it's really not there. And I think that's got to be top priority of, you know, using our website or how we're going to do it, even if it's unscientific or if it's scientific, it's some type, we don't want people gaming the system, but we need a reasonable way to survey parents. It's, you know, we want their input on something.
And that's one of Kevin's goals for this year is our communication plan, right,
Yeah.
Kevin?
Right.
I'm sure that'll be part of your plan.
All right, so John, we'll look at it, and we'll also look at ways, Pam, you can identify what you did last year and what you're gonna do this year. Same thing, so we can make sure that all these out there and also put it on the website. All right, our next item of new business is memorandum of agreement between Cook County and Riverside Brookfield High School District 208 for use of site by the Cook County Department of Public Health.
I provided an email, just so you can see how the email language was written by the Cook County Health. This is something that when In my previous district, our high school served as the same thing. Actually, my two previous districts. This is when you kind of do your crisis management planning with the county and your local law enforcement agencies and rescue officials and all county and state agencies. They usually identify the public high school or a central location within the middle of a region to serve as a vaccine distribution point or a crisis point. And the board had already previously approved this, but with a majority of the board turning over, the county asked that we just approve it again for their records.
Except it's not the same as the last agreement. And the only change is take away county's responsibility for claims if something happens while we're letting them in here.
I gotta be honest, I didn't read it that detailed to say.
I did. In section 4, the last two sentences are new from the old one, and the whole section 5. In section 4, the last two sentences say, in the event of a claim, each party shall be responsible for its own defense. No financial obligation will be imposed on either party by reason of this MOA.
Page 2.
Do we
It's
have
on
that
page
recent
2.
MOA?
Yes. Don't know what you want.
That's the original one.
Right.
That's your- right?
This is the original one from 06.
This is the original one from 06.
That's the original.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the one that says
Then the
page.
amended
Then you gave us the new one that you want us to execute.
So when it says responsibility for operations,
The last two sentences are new from the prior agreement.
So this really isn't because there's a new board, but because they want to establish an
Absolutely.
MOA.
Yeah, the last two.
I wouldn't, I don't know if you could put words into somebody else's mouth. I just gave you the email chain of what they asked for.
that's what they asked for.
Leave the in the event of, that's not there, did I say the wrong thing?
So what do you want to do on this one?
It's the
Do we
second.
want to bring it back and ask them that question?
I think we should.
This one's.
Oh, this one.
I'm sorry, it's not the last two sentences, it's the second to last sentence. In
Second
the
to
event of
last
a claim,
sentence.
each party shall be responsible for its own defense.
So that's the only change between the old and the new that you
No,
identified?
section 5 is new, but it's, I don't see any harm in that one.
All right, so if you can go back and check on that sentence, how about that? All right, any other questions, or do we want to vote on this? Please let me know.
And this would just take the place of the prior one
Yes, sir.
as at the time we approve it?
Well, if they're willing to just, there's no reason to, we don't have to do anything if they just leave the prior one in
Yeah.
place. It doesn't
It
have to be
stands, doesn't it?
voted on, the board's the board, it continues.
We could vote on the prior one if we want.
We could vote on,
You don't
the
have to,
prior
though.
one, we don't have to do anything about.
It's already in existence.
We could adopt and continue the prior one.
Could do that.
We don't have to adopt it,
We don't
continue the
have
prior
to.
when
That
it's
was done
already
already.
continuing.
So there's no, okay.
Well, they've asked
The
us
term of
to
this
do
MO
something,
should be
so-
1 year commencing as the date both parties have signed.
I will let how about we hold off on this until January? I will let Mr. Passarello, he serves on this committee, let the county know that the board has a problem with the last second to last sentence in section 4. Is that right?
Yes,
And how would the board like that to read?
take it out, keep the old agreement in place.
Yeah, strip it in.
That's the one that starts with this MOA shall not be constructed? construed?
No, the one before.
In the event.
In the event. The second to last sentence.
Got it.
Okay,
Thank you for pointing
all right.
that out.
They'd like that sentence removed.
Take that out.
If they choose not to remove it, then we're just gonna keep the other one in place and not take any formal action.
Okay.
Is that what the board wants?
Yep.
Yep. All right, then, we're gonna go to closed session, in which we'll talk about personnel issues, collective bargaining, collective negotiating matters, litigation, student residency, and student discipline. But prior to that, we have another round of visitor statements, so anybody over there wants to speak? Anybody over here wants to speak? Seeing none, then,
I think it's important we note that, under the matters for closed session, that the RBEA has voted 95-5 to enter into negotiations with the Board of Education, and it's my recommendation that during closed session, we discuss moving into collective negotiations with the RBEA in good faith to try to mutually try to resolve some of our financial issues.
Okay, so noted. All right, seeing nobody for visitors, do I have a motion for closed?
Resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, or dismissal of employees, collective bargaining issues, litigation, student discipline, and residency.
Do I have a second? Second by Gary Grinchen. Mary Ann, you want to go for the vote?
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mr. Tresca?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Rome?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes, and before you shut off the cameras, I'd just like to wish the community, because this is a new board, that we're approaching the holiday season, that the Board of District 208, all of us wish everybody out in the community, student and staff, a very happy and safe holiday. So I really appreciate if this word can get out, so we really hope that all of our community members, staff, and students have a very happy and safe holiday here. So,
I'd like to add something as Vice President to actually say Merry Christmas to everybody.
okay, thank you. All right, thanks a lot. You can cut the cameras off.